Enemies are a crucial part of my game, but right now they're like plain vegetables, stale and disgusting. So let's give them some hot sauce. In the previous episode we only had 2 enemies, so now we have this much. Each enemy is categorized in melee or ranged, and of course melee attacks from up close, and ranged enemies from far away. The first important thing I did is I made the enemies stop before attacking. This made the interactions better and more fair to the player. Enemies in my game are somewhat smart and have unique behavior. For example, if you saw from the last video, ranged enemies can predict your movement. Well, the melee enemy has a trick up his sleeve too. Countering. That's right, the melee enemy can counter you. Right now, enemies cannot attack you while they're being attacked constantly. But now, each melee enemy has a chance to counter your attack and attack you back while you're attacking it. Next is the most important part of the enemy attacking. It is the attack indication. Before each attack, the enemy will indicate with an exclamation mark, giving the player a slight window to react. Without this, it was very hard to see the actual animation of the attack, so it is a nice addition. While we have regular enemies, each enemy has its own enhanced version, which is much stronger. It is bigger in size and also has this purple outline around it to signify some sort of aura. Each enemy will have a 5 to 10% chance of being enhanced on spawn. So yeah, you can get lucky but unlucky. And now, I present to you the first official boss of the game, Demonic Eye. Well, technically, it's not the first boss, because I had a boss in the previous version of the game, but yeah, here it is. This is the easiest boss, and you will face him in the first dungeon floor. It has 3 different attacks to perform, and it performs it randomly. Also, each boss has a trick up his sleeve. When a boss reaches 40% health, it enters retaliation mode. In this state, the boss attacks more frequently, and his abilities are enhanced in strength. Okay, back to regular enemies. One more important thing I added is that ranged enemies can now retreat if you get too close. So, they will keep shooting at you from a distance, and if you get closer than 50% of its range, it will start retreating. But for it to be fair, I slowed them down while they're retreating, because let's face it, no one can run at full speed backwards. To spice up the enemy killing, enemies now drop coins, and for now the only way to get some coins is from killing enemies. And you will not always get the coins, by the way, it is a percentage chance, and each enemy has different ones. So yeah, if you do happen to get some coins, spend it wisely. I tried to make the enemies as juicy as possible, so I added little details to them. For instance, before, melee enemies would just trigger the attack, dash animation and dash, meaning the animation would not stay static. Now, the animation is static until the end of the dash, which looks way better. Also, I added this cool ghosting effect when melee enemies dash, which I really liked. Okay, so melee enemies had some visual changes, but what about ranged enemies? Well, I added something too. The bullets that they shoot each have a trail based on their bullet's color, which looks amazing in my opinion. With these enemy visual changes, the gameplay already looks better, and fighting enemies became more interesting. Now, even more juice. Each enemy has a health bar above its head, and it is only visible when you attack the enemy. Also, you can clearly see how much damage you are dealing to the enemy with the text pop-ups. And they also added some blood particles to the enemies when you damage them. It is a slight visual addition, and sometimes you cannot even notice it, but I think it's better than nothing. So now, killing enemies became even more fun than before. All of these changes really make the enemies more alive and interactive. One last thing, but most important thing I did for the enemies is I added pathfinding. Before, enemies can just become stuck behind any object if the player is on the other side, which is not ideal enemy behavior. So I added pathfinding. It was not that hard because I used the A-Star project, which is a massive project even with the free tier. How it works is this. First, you must have objects on some sort of layer, which will mean the objects to avoid. Then you must perform a scan on the scene, so these objects can be marked as objects to avoid, and they are marked with these little red nodes. The blue space is where the enemies can walk. And the final step is to write a bit of code so the enemy would generate a path and follow it. And that's it. Now the enemies can follow a path to the player while ignoring the objects and not getting stuck. This will not let the player to outsmart the enemies, because the enemies are a little smart themselves. I literally increased their intelligence from 0 to at least 20 for sure. Thanks for sticking till the end, I really appreciate it. If you want to see further development process of this game, subscribe. Do not forget to leave a like and some feedback or any ideas that you have. Bye.